Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his massive warship and looked at the data on his screen. The third planet from a yellow star showed signs of life. His long fingers moved across the control panel as he studied the information his scouts had sent back. "Another primitive world," he said to his second-in-command. "They barely know how to travel between stars." The Zephyrian Confederation had been conquering planets for over 1,000 years. They were good at it. Their ships could change and adapt to fight any enemy. Their weapons could break through any defense. In the past 50 years alone, they had taken control of 17 different star systems. This new planet looked easy. The beings living there called themselves humans. They fought each other constantly. They had no single government controlling their world. Their ships were made of simple metal and used crude engines that burned fuel. Most of their weapons were basic projectiles that fired metal bullets. "How many ships should we send?" asked Commander Veltar, Kethver's assistant. "The standard first wave should be enough," Kethver replied. 50 bioships. Maybe we won't even need half of them. The Admiral had conquered many worlds. Some species surrendered immediately when they saw the power of the Confederation. Others fought bravely, but were quickly defeated. A few had interesting technologies that the Confederation could study and use. But none had ever been a real threat. The humans looked especially weak. Their planet was divided into hundreds of different nations. These nations often fought wars against each other. They couldn't even agree on simple things like trade or borders. How could such a divided species possibly stand against the might of the Confederation? "Begin the jump to their system," Kethver ordered. "We'll arrive in 3 days." The Zephyrian ships were living creatures as much as they were machines. They had been grown in biotanks and trained to obey commands. Each ship could think for itself and change its shape to meet different challenges. Their hulls could become harder or softer. Their weapons could adapt to penetrate enemy shields. They were perfect predators. As the fleet prepared to jump through space, Kethver reviewed the intelligence reports one more time. The humans had only recently developed faster-than-light travel. Their most powerful weapons were nuclear bombs that they had never even used in space combat. They had no energy shields protecting their ships. They didn't even have proper armor on most of their vessels. "Sir," said Commander Veltar, "our bioanalysts have finished studying the human samples we collected. What did they find?" "The humans are carbon-based life forms, similar to many species we have encountered. They are physically weak compared to most galactic species. They have no natural armor, claws, or toxic abilities. They appear to be evolved from creatures that hunted other animals on their world." Kethver nodded. Predator species could sometimes be dangerous, but usually only when they were desperate. The humans didn't even know the Confederation existed, so they wouldn't be prepared for an attack. "They have one unusual trait," Veltar continued. "Their brain chemistry is different from most species. They produce chemicals that make them ignore pain and fear when they are in danger." "Interesting but not important," Kethver said. "Fear chemicals won't help them against our bioships." The jump through space took exactly 3 days. When the Confederation fleet arrived at the edge of the human solar system, they found exactly what they expected. A few small space stations, some primitive satellites, a handful of basic warships patrolling the outer planets. "Begin standard invasion protocol," Kethver commanded. "Move toward the third planet. Ignore the outer defenses unless they attack us." The 50 Zephyrian bioships moved forward in perfect formation. Each ship was over a mile long and looked like a giant sea creature swimming through space. Their hulls were dark and smooth, constantly shifting shape as they moved. The human ships were tiny in comparison. Most were less than 1,000 feet long. They looked like metal boxes with engines attached to the back. Some had gun turrets sticking out from their sides. They appeared crude and primitive next to the elegant bioships. "The humans are moving to intercept us," reported the sensor operator. Kethver watched as the human ships changed course. There were only 12 of them. They were flying straight toward the Confederation fleet with no apparent plan or strategy. "Are they trying to surrender?" asked Veltar. "No, sir. They're powering up weapons." Kethver couldn't believe what he was seeing. 12 primitive ships were attacking 50 advanced bioships. It was suicide. Either the humans were incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. "Perhaps they don't understand the situation, Kethver." "Side, open a communication channel." "Channel open, sir." "Attention, human vessels. This is Admiral Kethver of the Zephyrian Confederation. Your world is now under our control. Surrender immediately and you will not be harmed." The response came back quickly in the human language, which the ship's computers translated instantly. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the Earth Defense Force. You are not welcome in our system. Turn around and leave now, or we will destroy you." Kethver stared at the communication screen. The human captain had actually threatened to destroy his fleet, 50 bioships that had conquered 17 star systems. It was almost funny. "Target their lead ship," he ordered. "Fire one warning shot." A beam of energy shot out from the nearest bioship. It was set to low power, just enough to damage the human ship's hull and show them what they were facing. The beam hit the human ship directly, but instead of stopping or surrendering, the human ship fired back. Its crude projectile weapons sent streams of metal bullets toward the bioship. The bullets bounced harmlessly off the bioship's adaptive hull. Then something happened that Kethver had never seen before. Instead of retreating when their weapons proved useless, the human ship spread out and began attacking from all directions. They moved in ways that made no tactical sense. They ignored proper formation flying. They seemed to be making up their battle plan as they went along. "Sir," called the sensor operator, "more human ships are approaching, many more." Kethver looked at his screen and felt the first hint of concern. Ships were coming from all over the human solar system. Not just military vessels, but civilian ships, cargo haulers, mining vessels, and even small personal craft. All of them were heading toward the battle. "How many?" he asked. "Over 300 ships, sir. And more are launching from the planet's surface." This was not normal behavior. When other species saw the power of the Confederation, they usually tried to negotiate or hide. They didn't send every available ship to fight a hopeless battle. Then the first human ship did, something that shocked everyone on the bridge. When its weapons failed to penetrate the bioship's hull, it accelerated to full speed and rammed directly into the larger vessel. The impact destroyed the human ship instantly, but it also caused serious damage to the bioship. The living vessel screamed in pain through the communication system as its hull cracked and internal systems failed. "Did that human ship just double quotes?" Veltar started to say. "Yes," Kethver replied quietly. "They just used their ship as a weapon." As more human ships arrived at the battle, Kethver began to realize that something was very wrong. These beings weren't fighting like any species he had ever encountered. They weren't trying to win through superior technology or clever tactics. They were simply refusing to stop fighting, no matter what happened to them. When a human ship was damaged, instead of retreating, it would try to ram the nearest bioship. When human weapons proved ineffective, they would modify them during battle or try completely different approaches. When they were outnumbered, they would split up and attack from multiple directions simultaneously. "Sir," said the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the human planet. Put it on screen." A human face appeared on the file display. It was an older man wearing some kind of military uniform. "I am General Martinez, commander of Earth's Defense Forces," the human said. "You have made a serious mistake. You think we are weak because we fight among ourselves. You think we are primitive because our technology is simple. But you don't understand what you're dealing with. Kethver activated the reply channel. You are facing the full might of the Zephyrian Confederation. Your resistance is meaningless. The human general smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've fought wars in deserts, in frozen wastelands, in jungles, and in the depths of space. We've survived plagues, natural disasters, and every possible threat our world could throw at US. And now you think you can just show up and take our home? Your weapons cannot harm our ships, Kethver said. Then we'll find new weapons, the general replied. We'll use our ships as missiles. We'll board your vessels and fight you hand to hand. We'll turn our entire planet into a fortress and make you pay for every inch, because that's what humans do. We don't know how to give up. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Confederation flagship in silence. Kethver looked at his tactical display and saw that the human ships were not retreating despite taking heavy losses. If anything, they seemed to be fighting harder as more of their vessels were destroyed. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kethver began to wonder if the Confederation had made a terrible mistake. Captain Elena Vasquez watched her command screen as dozens of ships appeared on the tactical display. Ships from every nation on Earth were racing toward the battle zone. Russian destroyers, American carriers, Chinese cruisers, European frigates, and vessels from countries that had been enemies just days ago. This is impossible, said her second officer, Lieutenant Kim. How are they all working together so fast? Elena had been wondering the same thing. The first alien ships had appeared only 18 hours ago. In that short time, every major government on Earth had done something that usually took months or years. They had shared their most secret military technology with former enemies. Captain, called the communications officer, we're receiving data streams from the Russian fleet. They're sending us the plans for their new plasma cannons. And the Chinese are transmitting their quantum computer codes, added another officer. The Americans just sent us their stealth ship designs. Elena couldn't believe what she was seeing. Nations that had spent decades keeping military secrets from each other were now sharing everything. The same countries that had argued about trade deals and border disputes were suddenly acting like parts of the same military force. Ma'am, incoming message from Admiral Chun of the Chinese fleet. Put him through. The face of a stern Chinese naval officer appeared on her screen. Admiral Chun spoke in English, which had become the common language for the joint Earth defense. Captain Vasquez, we are implementing immediate technology integration. All human fleets will share weapons systems, shield generators, and sensor data in real time. That's never been done before, Elena replied. Our systems aren't designed to work together. Then we will make them work together, Chun said simply. We have 12 hours to modify every ship in the combined fleet. Our engineers are already working on it. Elena ended the transmission and looked around her bridge. Her crew was staring at her with expressions of amazement and fear. You heard the Admiral, she said. Contact our engineering teams. We're about to rebuild this ship while flying into battle. Across the solar system, something remarkable was happening. Human engineers who had spent their careers competing against each other were now working as a team. Russian scientists shared data with American researchers. Japanese technicians helped European mechanics install new systems. Brazilian programmers worked with Indian software developers to create new computer networks on the lunar bases. Factories that had been producing civilian goods were quickly converted to make weapons. Mining operations on asteroids stopped collecting metals for construction and started building ammunition. Space stations that had been research facilities became military command centers. But it wasn't just the technology that was changing. It was the humans themselves. Commander Sarah Mitchell was piloting a damaged fighter craft when she received an impossible order. Her ship's engines were failing, her weapons were out of ammunition, and her life support systems were running low. Any reasonable pilot would have retreated to a safe distance. Instead, she received a message from her squadron leader. "Mitchell, we need you to ram that alien bioship. Your fighter is too damaged to make it back anyway." On any other day, with any other enemy, Sarah would have refused such an order. It was suicide. But when she looked at her tactical display and saw the alien ships moving toward Earth, she felt something that surprised her. She wasn't afraid. She was angry. "Copy that. Command. Beginning attack run." Sarah pushed her damaged fighter to maximum speed and aimed directly at the largest alien vessel. As her ship accelerated towards certain destruction, she thought about her daughter back on Earth. She thought about all the humans who were counting on her to buy them time to organize their defenses. The alien bioship tried to move out of the way, but Sarah adjusted her course. At the last second, she activated her ship's emergency beacon and sent a message to the other human pilots. "This is Mitchell. The aliens' hull armor is weaker near their engine sections. Hit them there." Her fighter crashed into the bioship and exploded. But her sacrifice gave the other human pilots valuable information about how to hurt the seemingly invincible alien vessels. Admiral Keffer watched the tactical display with growing confusion. The human ships were not fighting like any military force he had ever encountered. They seemed to have no central command structure, no unified strategy, and no concern for their own survival. Yet somehow they were working together more effectively than species that had evolved to share a group mind. "Sir," reported his sensor operator, "the human fleets have somehow linked all their computer systems together. They're sharing targeting data, shield frequencies, and battle plans instantly across their entire force. How is that possible?" Keffer asked. "They have dozens of different governments and military organizations." "Unknown, sir, but it's working. They've created a single unified defense network in less than one day." What the Admiral didn't understand was that humans had been preparing for this moment their entire history without even knowing it. Every war they had fought against each other had taught them something new about combat, survival, and working under pressure. When the Russian ships shared their plasma technology, American engineers immediately saw ways to improve it. When the Chinese provided their computer codes, European programmers found ways to make them faster. When the Japanese offered their shield designs, African technicians discovered methods to make them stronger. Each human culture had developed different solutions to the same basic problems of warfare and survival. Now, faced with an external threat, they were combining all of their knowledge into something greater than the sum of its parts. Dr. James Park was working in a laboratory deep beneath the surface of Earth when he made a discovery that would change everything. He had been studying fragments of the alien bioships that had been recovered from the first battle. "This is incredible," he said to his research team. "These alien ships are living creatures, but they're also machines. They can adapt and change their physical structure." "How do we fight something like that?" asked Dr. Sarah Kim, his assistant. "We out-adapt them," James replied. "Humans have been adapting to survive for millions of years. It's what we do best." James began sending his research to every human military unit in the solar system. Within hours, human engineers were developing new weapons designed specifically to fight adaptive bioships. They created missiles that could change their attack patterns in flight. They built energy weapons that could shift frequencies faster than the alien ships could adjust their defenses. But the most important discovery was something else entirely. The alien ships communicate with each other through biological signals. James explained in a broadcast to all human forces. They're like a hive mind, but with individual personalities. If we can disrupt their communication network, we can confuse their entire fleet. Human computer specialists immediately began working on electronic warfare systems. They studied the alien signals and learned how to jam them, redirect them, and even fake them. Meanwhile, human soldiers were preparing for something that the aliens had not expected: boarding actions. Lieutenant Maria Sentis was part of a special forces unit that had been training for space combat. When her commanding officer explained their mission, she thought he was joking. "You want us to board their ships?" she asked. "How?" "We ram a transport into their hull, blow a hole in their armor, and fight our way inside," the commander replied. "Once we're in their ship, we plant explosives and try to capture their technology." "That's insane," Maria said. "Yes, it is," the commander agreed. "But insane is what humans do best." Maria looked around at her squad. They were all volunteers. Every one of them had family on Earth. Every one of them understood that this might be a one-way mission. "When do we launch?" she asked. Across the human fleet, similar conversations were happening. Pilots were volunteering for suicide missions. Engineers were working 36 hours straight to modify weapons. Scientists were sharing research data with colleagues they had never met. Admiral Keffer received reports that made no sense to him. Human ships were attacking his biovessels with weapons that shouldn't exist. Human computer viruses were infiltrating his communication networks. Human soldiers were somehow getting inside his ships and fighting hand-to-hand combat against his crew members. "Sir," said Commander Veltar, "perhaps we should call for reinforcements." "Reinforcements?" Keffer stared at his second-in-command. "We have 50 bioships against a few hundred primitive human vessels. We don't need reinforcements." But even as he said the words, Keffer knew something was wrong. The humans were not fighting like a primitive species. They were fighting like something else entirely. They were fighting like a species that had never learned how to give up. As the second day of battle began, more human ships continued to arrive from all over the solar system. But now they were different. They had been modified with new weapons, new shields, and new technologies that combined the best innovations from every human culture. The humans were learning. And they were learning fast. Admiral Keffer decided to change his strategy. The humans were proving more difficult than expected, but the Confederation had dealt with stubborn species before. It was time to use their standard method for breaking enemy resistance. "Prepare for Phase 2 operations," he ordered. "Target their population centers. We will demonstrate our power and force them to surrender." This tactic had worked perfectly on 16 other worlds. When civilian populations saw their cities being destroyed, their governments always chose to surrender rather than watch their people die. It was logical. It was civilized. It was how intelligent species behaved when faced with superior force. The bioships moved into position above Earth's major cities. London, New York, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, and dozens of other population centers were targeted. The ships charged their main weapons and prepared to fire. "Transmit the surrender demand," Keffer commanded. That the message went out to every human communication network on the planet. "People of Earth, you have seen our power in space. Now witness what we can do to your cities. Surrender immediately or watch your civilization burn." Keffer expected panic. He expected desperate calls for negotiation. He expected the human governments to realize they had no choice but to give up. Instead, something completely unexpected happened. The humans began to disappear. In London, subway stations that hadn't been used since ancient wars suddenly filled with people carrying supplies and equipment. In New York, the underground tunnels and basements became bustling networks of activity. In Tokyo, hidden bunkers that had been prepared for natural disasters opened their doors to millions of civilians. But the humans weren't just hiding. They were transforming their entire civilization into something the Confederation had never Seen before. Dr. Margaret Webb was working in a converted subway station beneath London when she received an urgent message from the surface. The aliens were about to attack the city above her head. Instead of running or panicking, she calmly turned to her team of engineers and scientists. "Right," she said in her crisp British accent. "Time to show these aliens what humans can do when we're properly motivated." Margaret's team had been working for 3 days straight to convert civilian infrastructure into military assets. The London Underground had become a massive weapons factory. Every train tunnel was now a supply line. Every station platform was now a command center. "Have we finished converting the construction equipment?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," replied Tom, a young engineer. "All the tunnel-boring machines have been modified with weapons systems. The crane operators have been trained to operate anti-aircraft guns. The miners are ready to start digging bunkers that can survive direct hits from those alien ships." Margaret nodded and activated her communication system. Similar conversations were happening in underground facilities all over the world. In Moscow, former subway workers were building missile launchers in abandoned train tunnels. In Beijing, engineers were converting entire underground shopping centers into fortress complexes. In New York, construction crews were digging new tunnels faster than the aliens could track them. But the most surprising development was happening in smaller cities and rural areas. Jake Morrison was a farmer in Kansas who had never been in the military. When the alien ships appeared over his farm, he did what farmers had been doing for thousands of years when faced with a threat to their land. He gathered his neighbors and made a plan. "Bob, you still have that crop-dusting plane?" Jake asked his neighbor. "Yeah, but it's just for spraying crops." "Not anymore. We're going to mount machine guns on it and turn it into a fighter plane." "That's crazy, Jake. That old plane can't fight alien spaceships." "Maybe not," Jake replied, "but it can sure cause them trouble." Within hours, farmers across America were converting their equipment into weapons. Crop dusters became attack aircraft. Tractors became mobile gun platforms. Grain silos became missile launching sites. Irrigation systems became communication networks. The aliens had expected to fight armies. Instead, they found themselves fighting an entire planet. When the first alien energy beam struck Earth cities, the Confederation expected to see massive destruction and civilian casualties. Instead, their sensors showed something impossible. The cities were empty. The humans had evacuated millions of people in just 3 days. Not only that, but they had moved all their important equipment, supplies, and weapons underground or to hidden locations. Where did they all go? Asked Commander Veltar, staring at the sensor readings. "Unknown, sir," replied the sensor operator. "Our scans show the cities are abandoned, but we're detecting massive energy signatures underground. It's as if the entire human population has moved into tunnels and bunkers." Admiral Keffer felt a cold sensation in his stomach. This was not how civilized species behaved. When their cities were threatened, they were supposed to surrender to protect their civilians. They weren't supposed to move their entire civilization underground and continue fighting. "Sir, we're receiving multiple attack signatures from the planet's surface." "What kind of attacks?" "Everything, sir. Missiles, energy weapons, projectile systems, and things our computers can't identify." The truth was becoming clear. The humans hadn't just hidden their civilians. They had turned their entire planet into a military base. Maria Santos and her Special Forces team had successfully boarded one of the alien bioships. Fighting inside the living vessel was like nothing she had ever experienced. The walls seemed to pulse and move. The corridors changed shape as they walked through them. Strange sounds echoed through the ship as if it were in pain. "Keep moving," she ordered her squad. "We need to reach their command center." The alien crew members they encountered were tall, thin beings with pale skin and large eyes. They fought with energy weapons that could adapt to different targets. But they had never faced anything like human soldiers fighting in close quarters. When Maria's rifle ran out of ammunition, she switched to her pistol. When that was empty, she used her knife. When her knife broke, she used her bare hands. The aliens seemed confused by this escalation of violence. They kept expecting her to stop fighting when her superior weapons were gone. They didn't understand that humans had been fighting with improvised weapons for thousands of years. Santos, we found their computer core, called Sergeant Kim over the radio. Plant the virus and set the explosives, Maria replied. We've got 5 minutes to get out of here. The computer virus had been designed by human programmers working around the clock. It was specifically created to disrupt the bioship's nervous system and cause it to malfunction. As Maria's team fought their way back to their escape pods, the alien ship began to shudder and convulse. The virus was working. The bioship was losing control of its systems. Similar boarding actions were happening throughout the alien fleet. Human soldiers were getting inside the bioships and attacking them from within. Each successful mission provided valuable intelligence about alien technology and weaknesses, but the most devastating attacks were coming from an unexpected source. 12-year-old Amy Chun was sitting in her family's basement in San Francisco, working on her computer. While the adults were busy with military preparations, the children had been given their own mission: create communication networks that the aliens couldn't intercept or destroy. Amy was a genius with computers, like many children her age. She had grown up with technology that previous generations could barely understand. While her parents were learning to use new weapon systems, she was writing code that could infiltrate alien computer networks. I'm in, she announced to her team of young hackers. I've got access to their communication system. What can you see? Asked David, a 14-year-old from across the city. Everything, Amy replied with a grin. Ship locations, troop movements, battle plans. These aliens store all their data in one big network. Can we mess with it? Can we mess with it? Amy repeated. David, we're about to crash their entire fleet. Around the world, children who had been born into the digital age were doing something that military experts said was impossible. They were hacking into technology that was thousands of years more advanced than anything on Earth, but they weren't doing it through superior programming or better computers. They were doing it through pure creativity and the kind of thinking that only came from minds that had never been told something was impossible. When Admiral Kethver's command systems began malfunctioning, he assumed it was a result of battle damage. When his communication network started showing false information, he thought it was electronic interference from the human weapons. It wasn't until his bioships began receiving contradictory orders and flying into each other that he realized the truth. Sir, reported the communication officer with panic in his voice, our entire network has been compromised. Someone is controlling our ships. That's impossible, Kethver replied. Our biotechnology is beyond their understanding. Nevertheless, sir, our ships are no longer responding to our commands. On his main screen, Kethver watched as 3 of his bioships suddenly changed course and began attacking other Confederation vessels. His own ship's weapon systems were cycling through different target lists without his authorization. Somewhere on the planet below, children who should have been in school were taking control of the most advanced. While Admiral Kethver struggled to regain control of his fleet, something was happening in deep space that would change everything. Emergency signals were racing across the galaxy, carrying news that made ancient civilizations tremble with fear. Humans had been awakened. On a distant space station orbiting the star Altair, an old alien named Zefter received an urgent message. His 4 eyes widened as he read the transmission. For over 200 years, he had served as a data keeper for the Altairian Archive, the galaxy's oldest library. In all that time, he had never seen information classified at this level of danger. By the ancient stars, he whispered. They actually attacked the human homeworld. Zefdor's clawed fingers moved quickly across his computer terminal. He began sending warnings to every civilized species in the galaxy. The message was simple but terrifying. The Terrans have been provoked. Prepare for consequences. Most species in the galaxy knew humans existed, but they knew them by different names. Some called them Terrans. Others knew them as the Ghost Soldiers or the Problem Solvers. A few ancient races simply called them the ones who do not stop. But all of them knew to be careful around humans. Captain Rex Harrison was drinking in a bar on a trading station near the Vega system when every communication device in the room suddenly activated. The emergency broadcast was being transmitted on all frequencies in dozens of languages. Attention all human citizens. Earth is under attack. Return home immediately. Rex set down his drink and looked around the bar. 3 other humans were sitting at different tables. They were all independent traders, explorers, or mercenaries who had been working in various parts of the galaxy. None of them had spoken to each other before this moment. Now, they all stood up at the same time. Anyone got a fast ship? Rex asked. I've got a courier vessel, replied Sarah Kim, a woman who had been sitting in the corner. It can make the jump to Earth in 6 days. I've got weapons, said Mike Torres, a large man with scars on his arms. Military-grade stuff. And I've got information, added Dr. Lisa Park, an older woman who worked as a xenobiologist. I know things about galactic politics that might be useful. Within an hour, the 4 humans had pooled their resources and were traveling toward Earth at maximum speed. Similar scenes were happening throughout the galaxy as scattered human citizens dropped everything to return home, but the humans weren't just individual traders and workers. Some of them held positions that other species had never suspected. Commander John Steele had been working as a security consultant for the Andromedan Council for 15 years. His job was to protect their most important diplomatic meetings from threats that conventional security couldn't handle. The Andromedans were an ancient species that rarely trusted outsiders, but they had made an exception for John. When the emergency message reached him, John was in the middle of planning security for a peace conference between 2 warring species. He immediately stood up and walked toward the door. Where are you going, Commander Steele? Asked Advisor Melther, the head of the Andromedan delegation. Home, John replied simply. Earth is under attack, but the peace conference is tomorrow. We need you here. John stopped and turned around. The Andromedan had worked with him for years, but had never seen the expression that was now on the human's face. With respect, Advisor, you don't understand what's happening. Someone has attacked my people's homeworld. That changes everything. Melther felt a chill run through his ancient body. He had heard stories about what humans could do when their home was threatened, but he had always assumed they were exaggerated legends. Commander, surely this can be resolved through diplomacy. John shook his head. Not anymore. The Confederation made this personal when they attacked Earth. Now it's going to end the way human conflicts always end when someone threatens our families. How is that? Completely. As John left the station, Advisor Melther immediately sent an urgent message to the Andromedan High Council. The message contained only 3 words: evacuate Confederation space. Throughout the galaxy, similar conversations were happening as humans in positions of responsibility suddenly revealed their true nature. Dr. Amanda Foster had been working as a peace mediator for the Galactic Trade Union for 8 years. Her job was to resolve conflicts between different species without violence. She was known throughout the galaxy as someone who could find peaceful solutions to any problem. When she received the emergency message about Earth, she calmly finished her current mediation session and then sent a message to all parties involved in galactic trade disputes. This is Dr. Foster. I am suspending all peace negotiations indefinitely. Any species currently in conflict with humanity or harboring Confederation forces should surrender immediately. What's about to happen to the Confederation is not something you want to be associated with. The alien diplomats were confused by her message. Dr. Foster had always been a gentle, peaceful human who believed in solving problems through talking and compromise. Now she sounded like someone completely different. "Dr. Foster," asked Ambassador Velkan of the Rigel system, "what do you mean by what's about to happen to the Confederation?" Amanda looked at the assembled diplomats with an expression they had never seen before. "The Confederation attacked our home. They threatened our families. They broke the one rule that every species in the galaxy knows not to break. They made it personal with humans. But surely there can be a peaceful resolution." "No," Amanda replied quietly. "There can't. Because now you're going to see what humans are really like when we stop being nice." The reports continued to flood in from across the galaxy. Humans who had been working as bodyguards for important alien officials suddenly resigned and headed for Earth. Human engineers who had been helping other species build space stations abandoned their projects. Human scientists who had been sharing their research with Galactic universities cut off all communication, but the most disturbing reports came from species who had hired humans to solve their most difficult problems. The Centauri Republic had been fighting a civil war for 20 years. Both sides had agreed to hire a small team of human military advisors to help end the conflict peacefully. The humans had been working quietly for 6 months, making slow but steady progress toward a peace agreement. When the emergency message reached the human team, they called a meeting with both sides of the conflict. "We're leaving," announced Colonel Sarah Martinez, the team leader. "Earth needs us." "But you can't leave now," protested General Carden of the Republic forces. "We're so close to a peace agreement, and we still need your help to rebuild our infrastructure," added Commander Velter of the rebel forces. Colonel Martinez looked at both alien commanders with an expression of complete seriousness. "Gentlemen, let me explain something to you. For the past 6 months, we've been helping you end your war. We've been showing you our peaceful methods, our diplomatic techniques, our careful approaches to conflict resolution. Yes, and they've been very effective." "Those weren't our effective methods," Martinez continued. "Those were our nice methods. Our effective methods are what we use when someone attacks our home." The alien commanders looked at each other with growing concern. "What's the difference?" asked General Carden. "The difference," Martinez replied, "is that our nice methods are designed to leave everyone alive and happy. Our effective methods are designed to make problems go away permanently." As the human team prepared to leave, they left behind detailed files about their work on Centauri Prime. When the alien commanders read these files, they discovered something that shocked them. The humans had not just been mediating their conflict. They had been quietly gathering intelligence on both sides, identifying key strategic weaknesses, and developing contingency plans for ending the war quickly if necessary. The files contained detailed invasion plans, target lists, and strategies that would have allowed a small human force to conquer the entire Centauri system in less than a week. "They could have ended our war on the first day they arrived," General Carden said quietly. "But they chose to help us find peace instead," replied Commander Velter. Both alien leaders realized that they had been seeing only one side of human nature, the peaceful, helpful side. Now they were learning that there was another side that most species never encountered, the side that other species hired when they had problems that needed to disappear completely. Admiral Kethfer was still struggling to regain control of his fleet when he received a message that filled him with dread. It was from the Andromedan High Council, the oldest and most powerful civilization in the galaxy. "Admiral Kethfer of the Zephyrian Confederation, you have made a grave error. You have attacked the homeworld of the Terrans. We warned your government about the humans centuries ago. We told you never to colonize their region of space. Now you will learn why. Respected Council, Kethver replied, we are dealing with a primitive species. They cannot threaten the Confederation. Admiral, you do not understand what you are facing. The humans are not primitive. They are something far more dangerous. They are a species that has never learned to accept defeat. The message continued with historical data that made Admiral Kethver's blood turn cold. The humans had been quietly operating throughout the final battle above Earth lasted exactly 18 minutes. Admiral Kethver would remember every second of those 18 minutes for the rest of his life, that it began when thousands of ships suddenly appeared at the edge of the solar system. But these weren't the crude human vessels that the Confederation had been fighting for the past week. These ships looked different. They moved differently. They felt different. Sir, reported the sensor operator with fear in his voice, we're detecting massive fleet movements. Ships are dropping out of hyperspace all around us. How many ships? Kethver asked. Over 3,000, sir. And they're all using technology we've never seen before. Admiral Kethver looked at his tactical display and felt his heart sink. The ships surrounding his fleet were clearly human in design, but they had been modified with technologies from dozens of different alien civilizations. He could see Andromedan shield generators, vegan energy weapons, Altarian computer systems, and propulsion methods from species he couldn't even identify. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead human vessel. Put it through. The face that appeared on the screen was that of an older human woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She wore the uniform of what appeared to be Earth's military, but her ship's technology was clearly far beyond anything Earth should have possessed. I am Admiral Sarah Chun of the Human Defense Force, she said simply. You have attacked our home. You have exactly one opportunity to surrender. Kethver activated his reply channel. We are the Zephyrian Confederation. We have conquered 17 star systems. We do not surrender to primitives. Admiral Chun smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Admiral, you don't understand the situation. For the past week, you've been fighting Earth's home guard. Ships built on Earth, with Earth technology, crewed by humans who had never left their solar system. Yes, and we were winning. No, Chun replied. You were being tested. We needed to understand your capabilities, your tactics, and your weaknesses. Now the test is over. Before Kethver could respond, his tactical officer shouted a warning. Sir, the human ships are moving to attack positions. Their weapons are charging. All ships, prepare for battle, Kethver ordered. Show them the power of the Confederation. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. The human ships didn't attack in formation. Like civilized military forces, they didn't follow standard tactical procedures. Instead, they moved like a swarm of predators who had been hunting together for years. Commander Rex Harrison was piloting a modified courier ship that had been equipped with Andromedan weapons and vegan shields. His ship was small and fast, designed for hit-and-run attacks. As he dove toward the Confederation fleet, he activated his communication system. All units, this is Rex. Remember, these are the aliens who threatened our families. Show them what humans do to threats. Around him, thousands of other human ships began their attack. Each ship had been modified differently, using technology that their pilots had acquired during years of working throughout the galaxy. Some ships used weapons that could punch through any armor. Others had shields that could absorb massive amounts of damage. A few had cloaking devices that made them nearly invisible. But the most terrifying thing about the human fleet was that every pilot knew exactly what they were doing. Captain Maria Santos was leading a squadron of ships that had been designed for boarding actions. Her vessels looked like metal sharks with magnetic gripping claws and hull-cutting tools. As her squadron approached the Confederation bioships, she opened her communication channel. "Remember your training," she told her pilots. "These bioships are living creatures. They feel pain. They can be scared. And we're going to teach them what fear means." Maria's ships attached themselves to the hulls of the alien vessels and began cutting their way inside. But this time, the humans weren't just carrying standard weapons. They had brought tools and techniques they had learned from conflicts across the galaxy. Inside the bioships, human soldiers moved with the confidence of people who had fought in every type of environment imaginable. They had battled in the crystal caves of Rigel, the gas clouds of Vega, and the gravity wells of neutron stars. Fighting inside alien vessels was just another day at the office. Dr. Amanda Foster was aboard Admiral Chun's flagship, coordinating the electronic warfare assault. For years, she had been working as a peaceful mediator, but her real expertise was in something else entirely, breaking things so completely that they could never be fixed. "All cyber warfare units begin Phase 2, she announced calmly. Around the Confederation fleet, invisible signals began penetrating the bioship's nervous systems. But these weren't the crude computer viruses that Earth's children had been using. These were sophisticated programs designed by humans who had spent decades studying alien technology. The bioships began to convulse and scream as their own nervous systems turned against them. Some ships started attacking their own fleet members. Others simply shut down completely, floating helplessly in space. Admiral Keffer watched in horror as his supposedly invincible fleet fell apart in minutes. "How is this possible?" he asked. His communication officer looked up from his station with panic in his eyes. "Sir, our bioships are reporting that the humans know exactly how to fight them. They know our weaknesses, our communication protocols, even our ship designs. That's impossible. We've never encountered humans before. Sir, I'm receiving reports from across the galaxy. The humans have been studying us for years. They've been working as consultants and advisors for dozens of species. They've had access to information about every major galactic power, including us." Keffer suddenly understood the true scope of what had happened. The humans hadn't just been working throughout the galaxy. They had been learning, studying, preparing. "They've been getting ready for this day," he whispered. On her flagship, Admiral Chun was coordinating the final phase of the battle with the calm efficiency of someone who had planned for this moment for decades. "All units, begin recovery operations," she ordered. "Capture as many Confederation ships as possible. We need their technology and their crews for questioning." "Admiral," called her communication officer, "the Confederation fleet is requesting permission to surrender." "Denied," Chun replied without hesitation. "They attacked our home. They threatened our families. They don't get to surrender until we're finished with them." Around the Earth fleet, human ships began capturing the remaining biovessels with techniques that seemed impossible. Ships that should have been able to escape were somehow trapped. Bioships that tried to self-destruct found their systems overridden. Confederation crews that attempted to fight back discovered that the humans had been prepared for every possible response. In his command chair, Admiral Kefir finally understood what the Andromedans had tried to warn him about. The humans weren't just another species. They were something else entirely. They were a species that had spent their entire history fighting impossible odds and winning. They had evolved on a planet where survival required constant adaptation to new threats. They had developed cultures based on the idea that any problem could be solved if you were willing to work hard enough and sacrifice enough. And when someone threatened their home, they brought all of that experience to bear with a focus that was absolutely terrifying. "Sir," said his communication officer quietly, "Admiral Chun is hailing us again. Put her through." Admiral Chun's face appeared on the screen again, but now she looked tired rather than angry. "Admiral Keffer, your fleet has been neutralized. Your crews will be treated according to galactic law. Your ships will be studied and then recycled. You personally will be returned to your government with a message. What message? That humanity is no longer going to hide what we're capable of. For centuries, we've been helping other species solve their problems quietly, peacefully, and with minimal fuss. We've been the galaxy's unofficial specialists in impossible situations. Chun paused and looked directly at Kethver through the screen. But you attacked our home. You threatened our families. You forced us to show the galaxy what humans are really like when we stop being nice and start being thorough. What does that mean? It means that from now on, when species have problems they can't solve, they'll know exactly who to call. And when they have enemies they need to disappear completely, they'll know that humans can do that too. Admiral Chun ended the transmission, leaving Kethver alone with his thoughts and his broken fleet. As the human ships began towing the captured Confederation vessels toward Earth, messages started arriving from across the galaxy. The Andromedan Council sent congratulations. The Vegan Trade Union offered new partnership agreements. The Altarian Archive requested permission to document the battle for historical records. But the message that made Admiral Chun's smile came from the Zephyrian government itself. It was a formal surrender document and a request for human assistance in rebuilding their civilization. "Admiral," called her communication officer, "what should I tell them?" Chun looked out at the stars and thought about all the humans who were now returning home from their work across the galaxy. They had been problem solvers, consultants, and specialists in impossible situations. Now the whole galaxy knew what they